Okay. Hi, everyone. Happy Monday. So we have a happy agenda today. Maybe it's not a heavy or, like a lot, but it's happy. So let me share my screen. All right. So our agenda today had a lot of items related to forming the new working group. The WAS is a working group right now. Thanks for everyone who is willing to join the journey. We just started it. The PR has been merged to form the working group, and another PR is waiting for an approval to get a mailing list. Once it is ready and it's merged, I will add it to the agenda meeting document so everyone can subscribe to it. And according to that, the label has been changed from area to working group, workload-aware scheduling. So please feel free to search for this label instead, and the channel name has been changed as well accordingly. It's lots of changes, but hopefully this will just, be a quick one because we still in the beginning of everything. Another item related to the working group that we, thanks to Matt, thanks to Kevin, they had a lot of feedback related to having an APAC friendly time meeting. So Matt suggested to have the same pattern that we had in sig-scheduling, which is every week we have either PAC or North America meeting. So as you can see here, we have this, this proposal, which is on Tuesday, we will have it in 9 a.m. PST or 6 p.m. Eastern time. And on Thursday, we will have it at 12 a.m. to accommodate the APAC time zone. And this will be 9 a.m. as well. If you are okay with that, please let me know. If you have any objection, please let me know as well. Let us know so we can accommodate this as well. Okay, I can see a lot of thumbs up. Please, if you have any objection, please let me know. Okay. Perfect. According to that, I will have another PR to update the meeting once we have Zoom link for our working group. Okay, so sorry, I'm talking a lot today, but sorry for that. The last thing is updating, let's talk about the next item, which is the release cycle 1.37. So I have a suggestion, and please let me know if this makes sense or not. But uh, within our working group, we have multiple work stream. So um, basically, it's WAS, TAS, and the integration and the auto scaling. The auto scaling is not it didn't start yet, but we have a lot of work upcoming, like in the upcoming releases. So I suggested it to be like a work stream as well. And we might have multiple work stream as well. So based on that, if we open the dashboard, our dashboard, I just, had a couple of views just for people who are, maybe will help us on specific work stream so they can see what we have on this specific work stream. instead of just having the not SEG, but it should be a working group. Like all the working group work here. It might be overwhelming for lots of people. So it's just an organized thing. And I added this column to have the work stream. So I'm not sure if this is okay or not with everyone, but it's just an organization thing, nothing else. Matt, Wojtek, everyone, if you have anything.
I was wondering about, and I'm sorry, I haven't joined this meeting for a while. I was wondering about the pieces Matt was working on around the integration with individual workload controller, the API for that. Like, what's the progress we're planning in 137 on that?
Matt, can you please?
Yes, so like together with Heba, we have a cap for that. And I'm not sure whether we open already some tasks or like items, whatever is the name on GitHub. Heba, you will know. But I can send you like the cap. So we are proposing the building blocks. Yeah, that's the one.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, because I was playing with the one with job controller that Heba built in 136, and it doesn't have any APIs, right? So like in order to do like the resource claim stuff, I had to do standalone pod groups, and then they don't get deleted, which means the claims don't get released, right? So like, yeah, this is what we need. Awesome. Okay.
Yeah, definitely we need that, right? Because what we did in job and API in 136 was, I would say, mostly for us, not for the users, right?
Right. It's like opportunistic to figure out how it works, and
yeah, exactly.
It was to prove that like the model works, basically.
Exactly.
Yeah, not make it usable for anyone. Really.
Overall, we need to give like users ability to express their scheduling intent. So set resource claims, set topology, set disruption mode, stuff like that. So like this API is the way to do that, and we'll start small as with everything. So in 137 we'll do job integration. We'll stay in alpha, but basically add these APIs there. And also in the cap we are giving recommendations for other controllers how they can like reuse these building blocks, like reuse those patterns, etc. So that's the plan. And I hope like once we get to beta, I already saw like that's more or less what everyone like other controller integrators are deciding on. Basically wait for until we are in beta with workload with pod group, and then they will integrate, and very likely starting with this API, because that's okay. So for example, jobs is one example here. So
awesome.
Thank you. That's tracked, and that's part of 137.
Excellent. Thank you.
So yeah, thank you, Matt, for collecting all the feedback for the past 6 months, I believe, maybe more, and put it together in this cap. Really appreciate it. Great work. So the plan is having this cap merged and implemented as well, and at the same time we will update the job integration cap as well and implement it for 1.37. Hopefully this will go as planned, and then all other like use cases will follow on the next releases as well. And according to that, there will be this library, which is the workload builder, which will be a shared library that any other project, or any other controller can use it to integrate with the WAS and TAS work streams. So this is the plan, and like again, the job was just like POC. Let's try to get it in that way.
Yeah, I understand. I just so
amazing.
I wanted to make sure we were making. I mean, I figured we were making progress on it. I just didn't know the status.
Yeah. So yeah, this is the status, which is like we have this proposal now, and it is in review, and hopefully we will get it like approved soon. Okay, so if according to the plan, or according to the agenda, I would like hope to go through the enhancement that we will cover in 1.37, so everyone can like make sure what we are going to deliver in 1.37, hopefully, and we can track this together. So basically in 1.37, we will have the beta for the WAS or the workload and pod group, and the preemptions we will have the like another update for preemption, I believe, Matt. I'm not following the preemption, but I can talk about the topology. But please, Matt, if you have anything related to preemption, you can update
The
us.
cap is already
Yes.
opened. We are trying to like figure out a couple remaining stuff, but like it's pretty much ready for review already.
Yeah. And basically like the biggest challenge is about implementing this in-place retrieval in scheduler. And Maciej, who I don't think is here today, is basically leading that. We had some. Yes, sorry, like.
Yeah, he is in Spała. Yeah.
Okay, sorry. So I'm not sure, Maciej, if you want to give us like a short update summary on the progress and the plan.
Okay.
Yeah, I think the cap is ready for review. There are some, I think, more of the remaining parts are about implementation details of this in-place retrieval, which seems to be the hardest part for beta promotion. Yeah.
Where's the cap? I couldn't find it.
I will send a link. Oh, this one, yeah.
Oh, this one? Okay.
Yes.
All right. Yeah, it doesn't have the label, and this is why it didn't appear. Okay, perfect. Let me add it to. Okay, I will add it later. Perfect. So this is the preemption about the TAS work stream. We agreed that this is like this is the scope for 1.37, which is taking care of the performance improvement and implement the metrics for TAS monitoring, so we can move to beta as well, and we will implement the respect triple N for the TAS, which is the nominated node name, and the final thing will be the what else? Yeah, the placement generation as well. So these are the tasks, or like the user stories that will be covered for TAS, and hopefully we will move to beta in this release as well. And of course, the integration, we just talked about it. We have a lot of integration use cases, but mainly Matt proposal and implemented for the job and train job as well, LWS and other than Matt.
Yeah, I think that totally. So we are basically blazing the path now for other integrations. But as you said, we have many of those like ongoing, and people from the like those controller communities are working independently or bringing the support. So yeah, I really hope that once we get like to repeat that into beta 137, like all of this work stream, like different controllers will basically unblock, and we will start see more and more adoption of WAS. But yeah, for now, like the focus is on delivering basically what we have now to beta. So workload pod group, preemption topology. And also, like, I think one thing missing or I haven't seen is like the composite pod group. We also have a cap for that, right? So basically, that's like the multi-level. Oh, it's there. Sorry.
Yes, it is there.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, yeah, but that's like a separate. So I think, yeah, for control integrators, as I said, so we are moving forward, but I'm pretty sure like once we get to beta, like this will speed up, and we'll see more and more adoption of WAS. Yeah.
Yeah, but for auto-scaling, we didn't plan for anything right now, right? So this is the plan so far. We're still in brainstorming phase for that. We had a lot of ideas, but we didn't have like a solid proposal to share, except I think Pavel has just one document. I can share it in the doc, in the agenda doc after the meeting. Andrea?
Yeah, hi guys. I just have a quick question. So I definitely need to review your cap math and the control integration. I think looks pretty solid right now. I kind of like want to ask a quick question around the, third-party integrations. So kind of have a quick conversation last week around whether it makes sense for us to at least have something on the train job site before 137. And again, one of the idea was to, I think as I said to you in the PR, just follow the job model. And like when workload-aware scheduling feature flag is enabled, we basically create a single pod group which represents single gang within the distributed training job. I'm wondering, like your perspective, like would it make sense and value to bring this up? Because I was kind of suggesting do the same for job set, but it looks like Giuseppe and suggested that probably it makes sense for job set to wait until this uh, VAS APIs are ready.
Yeah. So overall, like, I think I missed one part in. I was like overly optimistic now. I think about this, like because in 137 we'll go to beta with pod group and workload, and this will be like together with like this proposal for the API on the controller side, and this will be what we need, but for like a simple single level controllers, right? For example, job, because for those like multi-level like job sets where you have like at least two levels, right? Replicated job and job, even you can tell it 3 levels, or like train job, which builds on that, or like other like gray cluster, whatever, even LWS, where technically we should have a separate pod group for leader and workers because like we should try to make them homogeneous. Then what is actually needed is also the composite pod group, right? Which we are working on and we will have in alpha in 137. So overall, I think that's a good question, and I'm not sure we have like one fits all recommendation. I would like defer to controller owners, like what they think about bringing some value now versus potentially having slightly more work later. Because if you go with this approach that you have a single pod group now, right, then eventually to like migrate to this model where you have like the hierarchy, right, and a tree of pod groups, right, and composite pod group, and like figure out how to do that. So yeah, like that's overall, I think the question I should answer like on the like per controller basis. So
yeah, I understand. So again, I mean, I personally see user value, even for users who run those workloads for kind of maybe simple training tasks. I mean, not really simple, but they just one you need to have one gang, right? And they want to have this one gang within their workload, right? When they spawn this out. I agree with you that will be a bunch of like refactoring on the API side and the composable pod groups, etc. But in any case, we need to do this work. So just to maybe showcase some, because I guess the timeline for 137 is like August right now, September. Okay.
something like that, I think. Yes, right.
I see. Yeah, but I mean, in any case, like I guess it's up to us to decide. But like again, if we can showcase some additional value on top of the existing APIs, I think maybe we should try to pursue this. But
yeah, and I agree. Like if you see
just
value in
follow
that,
it
like I would say like go for it, right? And like also I would say like if some integration features in alpha, then like usually alpha means like no promises about backward compatibility. I'm not sure about like some like out of 3, maybe there are different different approaches. There are like different meanings of alpha, but yeah, I think usually that's
we try to kind of follow the same way on the train job API. Like, and if like a feature flag is also like an alpha similar to job, right? We don't really guarantee that there won't breaking changes, but like it looks like there will be no really breaking changes because similar to job, because it's just opt in by feature flag. You don't really introduce any new APIs, right? So it doesn't really breaking change, right? Like we can just
I was more thinking about
update
like you can now go to alpha with like a single pod group, right? And then once the integration goes to beta, it will actually adapt composite podgroup like multi-level. So in a way, it will be breaking because it will behave differently. But maybe that's acceptable. Like that's the question about like convention stuff on the controller side.
Yeah, it's actually a good point. Like I think for job, it's even I mean, is it the breaking change once we like move this feature to kind of more gang of gangs within the job, right? I think we haven't really talked about it, but yeah.
Yeah, sometimes I feel bad for the job controller. It takes a lot of trials and but I believe it will be good because everyone is using jobs. So if it's working, it will be amazing. So let's hope for that. Okay, so moving to what can we do? It's like review, of course. So please feel free to pick any of the PRs. If you go to this dashboard, you will find this this bunch of PRs needs to review. So please feel free to pick any of them and start to review them. Your feedback is really, really important and very essential, and it will help us move forward as fast as we all can. So we appreciate your help here to review. Yeah. Matt, Andre, anyone? Do you have anything to add?
I can just add that we haven't covered the composite podgroup, and I just wanted to quickly mention that I think this is the biggest cap that we have this cycle. I think that's the API change, right? But you have like somewhere, like in the previous view, you had you had the cap, right?
Yeah, I have the cap here.
Yeah, because like the main reason is that we are introducing this multi-level API, so something that can group together other pod groups or potentially other composite pod groups. And that essentially means that we need to, like all the features that we have, so gang scheduling, preemption, topology-aware scheduling, right? Now it needs to work in this multi-level. So basically we need to change all of them, right? And that's why the scope of this cap, like all the implementation changes, is actually huge. I hope that we are converging and like on the design. But still will be like pretty challenging to deliver everything in 37 in alpha. But yeah, like fingers crossed. I think there's still time, and hopefully we'll make it. If anyone is interested, I like encourage you to take a look at the cap. What are the challenges there that might be interesting? Because with like multi-level, some of the new problems appear. But still, I think we believe we have a reasonable path here, like to introduce those changes with some simplifications in alpha and also like in beta, then adding more complex or like advanced algorithms to solve some of the problems. So.
Yeah, I believe.
Yeah, but overall, like this is also like this is also critically needed, right? Because we need that to model like multi-level topologies or multi-level controllers.
Do we have a plan, Matt? Like the cap is it's big.
It's huge.
and it's I mean it's thorough, right? It's good. It's a great cap, right? What I'm wondering, do we have a this is building the framework, but like when we did the pod groups last time, we did the job integration, so at least we had one client of the function. And are we doing the same here? Is there some, even if it's out of tree, or most likely it's out of tree, like a job set or something, are we going to try it out with one so we make sure we're making the right choices here?
So I think that's a really great point, and we definitely should. I think targeting something in tree is rather. I'm sure. Do we even have something in tree that is like multi-level?
I don't think we have anything in tree that.
No, I think we should target either job set or leader work.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah.
Give us more time, and definitely like before going to beta with this, we need to like validate that. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And given that we probably should try beta next release, I mean, 138,
but with out of tree,
which is super aggressive with this complex of a cap, but
we'll see. I think that's where we should be going, and we should adjust like based on like what's happening.
Yeah, we gotta hurry, right?
So for composites, what group? So directly go to beta just from the start?
No, we are going to alpha. To
Okay,
alpha.
okay.
So that's basically, it will be like a new type, right? A new resource, this composite pod group. So it needs to go to alpha, beta, and so on.
And with a new type, that means beta. It's slower still because we can't be on by default with the beta API.
Yeah.
But I mean, for like GKE, it's easy to enable those beta APIs. So, but
yeah, but I think the plan is once we have the 1.37, the LWS or job set needs to land this as soon as possible. So this will be our POC, like for this, that it is working. Once we make sure that it is working, now we can work on, going to beta on 1.38. So this is the plan.
I think it's not really that like those need to land, like the integration. I think we need to ensure that like we know how to do it, and like we prove that we can do that. Like it depends how we define land.
We should be able to implement those in an alpha mode in those controllers, right?
We need to have some implementation. We need to prove that like it works, but it like depending on like the way I'm treating landing is that like it's like proven in production and so on. Like we probably don't need that, right? So.
yeah, not production level, but that like job set or LWS survived with this, and like
we need to have we need to have like integration done, maybe not released, but like done in a way that like we know it will work.
Yeah, so that maybe that's already in the beta criteria here, but if it's not, it should be.
It should be. I think
I'm not sure. I will check and like make sure we have like
Yeah, I will definitely make sure to have this. Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It is there.
Maybe just a few high-level questions. I know you've done a couple of the smart after the first review, right? So I guess we need to take a look at it again. But like we did limit number of hierarchy within the composition, right? Initially,
yes.
And it's equal to 3, right?
I think 4. We agreed on 4 because right now we haven't heard about any cases where we need more than that. But if you have some, then let me know, like, because we'll adjust. Like overall, the idea is we want to start with some limit, right? Because we can always go up, increase that, and we can never really decrease that, right? Because we might break someone. So, and also it's I think unreasonable to start without any limit, because then users might start creating hierarchies of height 100 or 1000. We need to support that, right? So that's
What kind of the primary use case we see for 4? Because I think we discussed about disaggregated inference.
I think disaggregated inference with this like router that is also needed, but doesn't have like the topology requirements shared with the piece and this. That's the case where we need 4, because we need this extra route to group together router and the prefills and decodes.
Okay, and does it go against we discussed the data center structure, right, with the rack and with the with the nodes, right? Because there we have 3 level of hierarchy. Like, do we introduce another one, another layer?
Like 3 levels, meaning like if you count nodes, then this doesn't really count, right? Because we only start counting from like actually grouping of nodes, right? So pod group is the first level. But like if you have, Andrei, like some feedback about this, like, or some examples, like please let me know. And
I think we should definitely, I mean, we should definitely talk more with the L&D guys, and I know they're doing this, like this, the recent work on, intelligence routing, right, and how they, build this inference schedulers. Yes, we definitely need to understand more on the.
So we would like ask them like start some thread. That would be great, and admit them.
Yeah, and I guess it will be part of this aggregated set, right? Because they have this new API in Lady Worker set.
Yeah, so basically we're in touch with like folks from Mistral who started this disaggregated set, the cap for that, basically the new controller, and like that's from where like the number 4 came, right? But yeah, if you have like more information here, or like there are like something, some new circumstances, then definitely we should check it. But again, like we can always like go up, right? Like if we see cases where we need 5, that's fine. We can like increase this number in the next release, or even in this release.
Yeah, and just quick question on the topology constraints. So this is like the label-based tasks, right? And
Yes.
I know we have this kind of like support for resource claims and podgroups, which I don't know if it's going to land on 137, but this is still, this won't be part of this, work stream, right?
So
maybe John knows more.
Yeah. On the composite stuff, like I just, there's already so much scope. Like let's like not mix it in.
Yeah.
We'll get it working with pod groups, and then as the use cases come in, like I think there probably could be use cases because right, you're structuring these things, and you might need a compute domain or a TPU slice or something like that for that particular composite pod group. But that I don't want to mix. I don't want to risk anything, right, on the composite pod group. Like let's get the basics in, and we'll get the other thing working with pod group. I'd love to get that to beta this release. I know sig-scheduling approver bandwidth is really tight though. So, and we have one little glitch there that like there's this weird narrow race condition during upgrade, but I don't think it's like something we need to worry about. Like theoretically we should do another alpha, but it's like realistically nobody's using it in alpha, and if they wait till the thing fully rolls out to use it, then this race condition goes away. So I think we could go to beta, but let's let's evaluate that as we move along through the cycle. Andre, I know you and I have talked about some different possible use cases you have around that, right? So is that what you're thinking about?
No, yeah, I mean, yes, I guess, I just kind of want to also understand, I guess, from you guys, like how, because I guess right now I have multiple DRA work streams, right? I know Q is doing some work as well there, right? And I guess, as I mentioned this in the Slack thread last week, I kind of see DRA, natively be integrated within Workload API, but then we have DRA on the pod API. I still don't really understand how those things will play out together in the future of Kubernetes releases. Just to be clear.
Yeah, I mean, I think that on the workload level, at this point, so Wojciech and I were talking about this last week. Like, I think there's sort of 3 areas where I think it can play a useful role or add value. One is in the provisioning aspect, right? So this resource claim with pod group allows us to life cycle these multi-node things that are used by that pod group along with the pod group. So as replicas come and go in a leader worker set, the compute domains or the TPU slices or whatever it is come and go as well, right? And they get released back to the capacity. The other aspect, and these are more like speculative, is that there are some use cases people have brought to us, but they seem to be like kind of like, they're not in the 80%, right? Like they're like, oh, we want to, do this Rails-based alignment where, we're going to carve out a set of GPUs. Because from an NVLink perspective, or from it doesn't matter whether they're on the same node or on different nodes, as long as they're NVLink connected, you get the same performance generally. So like you could actually carve up like an NVL72 in sizes and in shapes that are not whole node. And that means node labels aren't necessarily sufficient to represent those topological groups. But I haven't yet even prototyped how that would work in DRA. So like and they're very kind of smaller. It's not clear that there's a lot of uses around that. That there's a lot of customers for that. There are some, but they may just have to make do, right? We don't necessarily have to solve every use case. And then, there's another one around things that maybe aren't represented by nodes, but are external to the cluster. They're kind of abstract. So from my point of view, like the primary focus is let's get the basic composite pod group working. Let's get the basic label-based task working. Let's get the life cycling aspect, because I think that's the most immediate value, the life cycling aspect of resource claims with these groupings. And those other edge cases I'm kind of working on. I'm going to prototype some things and we'll see where they land, and where they evolve to. There's also a bunch of things like of modeling things that aren't like GPUs and TPUs, but are like abstract things. So these extension points can be useful for that. But we have to, anyway, we'll see where that goes. I don't know if that's helpful, what I just said to you, Andre, but
yeah, I mean, I guess like, my, like the high level question, like, if the workload API is something, everyone will use, like, are we going to still have this way to, for folks to configure resource claims on the pod specs, or this will go away eventually?
Oh, you still need a
Yeah.
per pod type of thing, right?
Mhm.
So I think nothing goes away once it's in a V1, right? Like it's there forever. But
Okay.
so I don't expect that to go away at all. In fact, that'll probably be, even in the case where we're life cycling it with a workload, often there's an associated pod level claim at the same time. Although
Okay.
we may be, that's another thing I want to prototype. So for example, we have this use case around like fabric attached GPUs, and the original proposal was trying to avoid, like, say, the NVIDIA driver having to be aware of this. And so we were trying to do some like magic to connect up the fabric attached one, and then NVIDIA driver advertises it. But I think it's actually easier, and the solution I want to prototype is actually have the NVIDIA driver not publish the GPU resources, and just the fabric attached controller like publishes them, but the NVIDIA one can still actually actuate them on the node without advertising them. And if we do that, then we don't actually need the pod level claim. So like it's just still an evolving space, but we'll always have a need for pod level claims for all kinds of things. So that's not going away.
Yeah, makes sense.
Okay. Any other point to discuss today? All right. Thank you, everyone. Next week, we will have the BRR freeze. The week after, we will have the enhancement freeze. So please, if you have any comments related to any of the enhancement, this week is the best week. Otherwise, it will be really hard. Yeah, let's do our best to get everything this week. If you have any comments, we can discuss in next week meeting, and hopefully this will be our final, chance to get anything, any comments. Okay.
Quick question: is this now the meeting for the WAS working group? Is it like
this will be, like the last
the time
Monday.
slot? Okay.
Yeah, and from next week we will have the Tuesday, and like the week after we will have the Thursday and so on. So we will start once we have the Zoom meeting. I will send a new calendar invite, and I will let you know.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. Okay, thank you all.
All right.
See you around. Bye.
Thanks.